Hi everyone, welcome to our how-to series on budgeting. Now, we all know that a prerequisite to successful household money management is having in place a good, solid budget. But the question is, what really is a budget? Why do we need one, and how do we go about creating one that will actually work and really last? So, over the coming weeks, we'll be giving you the tools to put in place a budget if you don't already have one. And this is going to work whether you're married or single, have no children or 10. We'll give you the tools you need to make a plan that works for you, whatever your circumstances. So, simply put, a budget is a plan for managing your money based on your estimated income and expenses. Creating and living within a budget will put you in control of your finances and give you the freedom to decide what you want to do with your money. Now, your budget is essentially a powerful tool because it will help you to prepare for times of financial challenge, allow you to withstand financial pressures, and give you the security of knowing that your finances are being handled responsibly. Consistently following a realistic, well-planned budget is the foundation of financial stability. Having a budget spurs you to look for ways to increase your income, obligates you to limit your spending, and will prevent you from purchasing on impulse. But one of the greatest benefits of having a budget in place is that it removes the stress and the tension from day-to-day financial decisions. Because once a family budget is in place, the question of can we afford it, can we not afford it, essentially becomes a moot point, because whatever's in the budget we can afford, whatever's not, we can't. A good budget ensures that finances no longer have to be a source of conflict or tension between spouses or between parents and children. The budget becomes the authority that decides whether money is to be spent or not. So stay tuned as we give you the tools you need to make your budget. Hi everyone, welcome to the second episode in our budgeting series. Now, in last week's first episode, we talked a little bit about the importance of having a budget. Today, let's start looking at some of the straightforward steps that you need to take to create a budget that works for you. Now, though it seems obvious, the first step is to determine your income. Start by adding up yours and your spouse's net annual earnings. You should include things like monthly salary multiplied by 12, any money you get from side jobs, investment earnings, interest and dividends payments, government benefits, and anything else. In fact, if you have any other source of income such as royalties, rent, parental support, anything, make sure to include that. But a word of caution, don't include possible windfalls such as gifts or year-end bonuses in your annual income projection. It also goes without saying that things like loans and available credit card limit doesn't count as income. Now, once you've got that, you're ready for step 2, tracking your expenses. To track your expenses, you'll need to write down everything you spend, ideally for a period of 6 to 8 weeks, more if possible. If you're married, you'll need to do this together with your spouse. During this time, you should hold on to all documentation from your financial transactions, including bills, invoices, bank statements, credit card statements, cash register receipts, everything. Now, to keep track of expenses as they occur, you may want to keep a paper hanging in a conspicuous place, such as on the fridge, to remind you to record your expenses as they happen. Alternatively, you may want to carry a little notebook with you so that when you write down things, you'll have a record of it. If you find it difficult to record expenses on an ongoing basis, you can take a few moments at the end of each day to record all of that day's expenses. Or you could use an app which both you and your spouse can access. In addition to recording each purchase you make, you need to think about all of the other silent ways that money can leak out of your budget, such as bank and credit card charges, standing orders and direct debits, stucker that you give, as well as things like items you buy with pocket change that you may not even keep the receipt. These invisible or seemingly trivial expenses are often responsible for the discrepancy between what you think you spend and what you actually spend. Tracking your expenses might be difficult at first, but once you get used to doing it, it will become so much easier and you will almost certainly see the benefits very quickly. You'll be amazed at how your increased awareness will put you more in control of your money and help you to make smarter spending decisions. Once you've tracked your expenses for a little while, you'll be ready for the next step. Stay tuned for the next episode. Hi everyone, welcome to the third episode of our budgeting series. Today let's talk about calculating expenses, because so far we've talked about tracking your expenses for a period of 6 to 8 weeks. Now it's time to organize those expenses, and what we mean by that is that you need to organize the data and group the different expense items into general categories. So for example, you would group together related expense items such as taxis, buses and trains under a general budget header called transportation expenses. Expense categories can be divided into 3 major groups: fixed monthly expenses, fluctuating monthly expenses, and annual or periodic expenses. It's important to note that when calculating your expenses, you need to leave out all types of debt repayments other than your mortgage. Debt repayments aren't actually a living expense and therefore not relevant at this stage of creating your budget. Let's talk about fixed monthly expenses, which will include things like mortgage or rent payments, different types of insurances like life or health, payments into saving plans, cleaning help, as well as school fees. Now, there should be no need for guesswork here, since the amount that you pay is almost always the exact same every single month. Fluctuating monthly expenses, however, can vary significantly from month to month, and that can be a little bit trickier. So examples will include food, groceries, utilities, such as phone, mobile phone, water, electricity and gas, petrol, household products such as toiletries, cleaning products and paper goods. It can also include bank charges. Now, after tracking your expenses for 6 to 8 weeks, however, you should be able to determine a range for these fluctuating expenses. And the numbers that you're going to use in your budget should be the ones at the higher end of that range. So for example, if your food bill is $1,000 one month, $1,200 the next, and $1,400 the one after, you might use, say, $1,250 as a higher end estimate of your monthly food costs. Now, the last category, annual or periodic expenses, are things like holidays and vacations, clothing for all the family, simchas, home repairs, Yom Tov expenses. You need to estimate these costs to the best of your ability using previous year's expenses as a guide. To determine your total annual expenditure, add up your fixed and fluctuating monthly expenses and multiply the total by 12. Then add to that your annual or periodic expenses. Now that you have a fairly accurate estimate of your annual expenditure, pad the figure by about 5 to 10% to allow room for unanticipated expenses, or you may simply have missed things. So this will give your budget the flexibility to accommodate surprise expenses. Having calculated all of your income and expenses, you now have all the information necessary to build your budget. Stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome to the final episode in our series dealing with budgeting. Let's very briefly recap on what we covered last week. After having tracked your expenses for a period of 6 to 8 weeks, we talked about categorizing all those expenses so that they could be easily stored and accessed. We made sure to separate fixed monthly costs with fluctuating costs so that the budget could be as accurate as possible. Let's move to the next step, which is to compare your income and expenses. Once you've determined how much you are actually spending on a monthly and annual basis, and you've tracked where all the money is going, you can now measure your expenses against your income and determine your annual balance using the following formula. Annual income minus annual expenditure equals annual balance. Now that you know what your annual balance is, first of all, you can congratulate yourself on having achieved financial awareness. Awareness is the foundation for all improvement, since you can't fix your financial circumstances unless you know what's wrong with them. If you and your spouse are aware of exactly what your financial situation is, you'll be more motivated to take the initiative and to do whatever you can to improve it. Therefore, achieving awareness is the critical first step in gaining control of your finances and is the basis for successful budgeting. Now it's time for the final step, building your budget plan going forward. Now you can build a budget plan for the future, taking into account both your current income and spending information, as well as future income and spending projections. How you go about that will depend very much on whether your annual balance was positive or negative. If it was zero, then for our purposes, we consider it to be negative. When building your budget plan, it is critical to ensure that you have a significantly positive annual balance. If your annual balance is negative, or if you already have a positive annual balance but you wish to increase it, you'll need to find ways of enhancing your income or reducing your expenses. You'll need to use some kind of monthly and annual budget forms, either something generic which you can find online or ours, and fill in projected future amounts for each item based on the data you've collected and any budgetary changes you have decided to implement, such as increase in income or reductions in spending. Also include in your new budget any one-time earnings or expenses that you anticipate in the upcoming months. The projections you write down in this set of forms will become your new budget plan. Once you've successfully built a budget plan, you can go on to create a cash flow plan that will make your budget plan work for you. As always, it might help to get personalized guidance on putting together your budget, so just be in touch. Good luck and stay tuned for further how-to videos. Hi everyone, welcome to another series. Now the next few videos we're going to go through some of the ways that you can maximize efficiency when it comes to doing your household shopping. According to a recent report, an average size family wastes hundreds each year on food they don't even end up eating. Rotten fruit and vegetables, out-of-date dairy produce, that's just some of the things that we throw away each and every week. Now, there are three main reasons why this tends to happen. First of all, a lack of proper planning. Secondly, we sometimes cook in overly large quantities. And thirdly, when choosing something to eat from the fridge or from the cupboard, we tend to give preference to the newer, nicer looking products rather than last week's older looking stuff. So what can we do to reduce waste? Firstly, and yes, it does seem a little bit obvious, but not everyone does this. Before doing the shopping, check the fridge, check the cupboards, see what's already in stock. Next, when you unpack the shopping, bring the old products to the front and put the newer stuff behind it. That way, you're more likely to use up all of last week's older stuff. Planning your meals can be a great way to ensure you're buying only what you need or what you really want, instead of kind of guessing once you're in the store. Making menu plans will also get you used to the idea of pricing up the different meals you make and can help you optimize that way as well. Next, make a list. It's estimated that shopping without a list can cause you to spend a whopping 20% more than you need to. Try and keep the list handy and add to it between your weekly shop. Now, if you're really super organized, you can make your list in order that the products are stocked around the supermarket that you go to. That way, you can avoid making unnecessary and potentially costly trips up and down the supermarket aisles. Finally, and perhaps most importantly, bear in mind the frequency of your shops. Many people we've spoken to tend to do one big shop each week with one or two kind of top-up shops, but this almost always leads to unnecessary spending. Every visit to a shop inevitably brings with it spending on things you might not really need. It may take some time to achieve shopping mastery, but we're certain that by implementing some of the tools we've discussed here today, you'll discover a huge saving to your monthly shopping bill and maybe even some extra time in your week. Hi everyone, welcome to the second installment in our money saving video series. Almost all of us use online shopping in one way or another these days, ranging from our weekly grocery shopping to clothes, shoes, tools, toys and everything else. So to keep your spending as streamlined as possible, here's our guide to shopping online. Firstly, upon going to one of the websites you shop from, if you see a chat option, open the chat and ask the customer service rep about the product you're looking at. Once you've asked a few questions, ask the agent if they're able to offer a discount code. Now, it's not guaranteed to work, but it's definitely worth a try. Where it doesn't work, or if there's no chat option available, there may be other ways. Search online for voucher codes for the retailer you're buying from, and you'll be pleasantly surprised very often to find codes for either money or a percentage off, or for free shipping. Next, whilst it's estimated that more than 25% of all online purchases are made on Amazon, not everyone is a Prime account holder, which means that you may end up paying high shipping fees unless your order is a minimum amount. Now, you can use a website like the Super Save Delivery tool, which will scour Amazon's website to find a product that costs whatever the difference is between your shopping basket total and whatever you need to get to for free shipping. Next, stores are usually able to track when you put something in your basket but don't check out the order. And sometimes they'll offer discount codes to entice you to complete the order. So here's what you need to do. Firstly, make sure you have an account with the store so that they know you. Find the item you're after and put it in your basket. Then leave the site, close the window. Finally, check your email over the next couple of days to see if there's a discount code waiting for you. Again, it's not a guarantee, but it's definitely worth a try. Finally, many of you will be aware that when making a purchase using a credit card, you're automatically insured so that if there's a problem with the item, you can claim via the credit card company. An alternative is to pay by credit card using PayPal and not directly with the retailer. Now, you should be aware that doing so means you don't get nearly the same level of protection. So if it's a high value item, we advise you to pay by credit card directly, not with PayPal. These are some of our online shopping top tips. If you've discovered online shopping money saving tips, then be in touch with us and do share them with us. Hi everyone, welcome to the final video in the series. Now, we are constantly being bombarded with ways to spend our money, and the temptation can be overwhelming sometimes. But on the other hand, we can't be expected to simply spend our money only on food, shelter and clothing. So the answer is to distinguish between needs and wants. And our approach is that you should always have everything you need and some of what you want. Let's explain. Every person's needs are determined by a number of factors. The first factor is society, in other words, where, when, and with whom you live. For example, in some parts of the world, you might consider having a car a luxury. In other countries, a second car could be a necessity. Personality will also make a massive difference here. There are some people who can live on peanut butter sandwiches every day for their lunch, whereas others may feel deprived without a super exciting lunch every day of the week. Finally, life circumstances can give rise to differing needs. For example, a large family may need a larger house or a car. A young family might need a lot of babysitting. So how do we differentiate between needs and wants? Quite simply, a need when unmet will usually become more and more intense and lead to feelings of deprivation. On the other hand, going without a want is an exercise in self-discipline, and we usually end up fine without it. So for example, when we don't eat, we get hungry, and that won't simply go away until we eat. That's a need. Upon seeing a decadent-looking ice cream, however, a want is created, true, but the feeling can and usually does go away. Anything that you would like to have but is not an absolute need falls under the category of a want. Now, even if your budget is tight, it is important to find a way to provide some of those things. We all need a little bit extra beyond what is absolutely necessary, even if it's just the occasional treat. On the other hand, we understand that it's simply not possible to have everything that we want. So the question is, how do we decide which wants we should go for? And the answer lies in identifying what your spending priorities are and allocating your resources accordingly. It's much easier said than done, but will ultimately make a huge difference.